Greg Ellis, the voice of Cullen, is a transphobic, racist asshole? My missus won't be happy. Sure, buddy. She loves Cullen. But yes, they should absolutely drop him for his remarks, especially when EA and BioWare both voice support for BLM and claim to support LGBTQ plus rights. Like you, it's important to us that the people we work with are aligned with our BioWare values. This will be apparent when we're ready to announce which actors will be lending their voices to the game. So our boy, real Greg Ellis says, what are the BioWare values, you corporate shill? Corporations don't have values. Remember, was it 2015 when all these corporations suddenly got the rainbow flag going and they were 100% on board with LGBT stuff? All of them. They all jumped in the water once they found out it was safe. What a bunch of bleeding pussies. There are no corporate values. Don't the loyal Cullen teens and Dragonface fans have a right to know? Did you have a responsibility to tell them? Do you support cancel culture? Do you support defamatory comments like this? Careful how you answer, you might lose your job. Okay, so what this is all about is one guy is mad at another guy because he said he supported J.K. Rowling, who said something like men and women are entitled to their own spaces safe from the opposite sex. Now, because of that, she's literally the Austrian corporal. And the trans issue is very interesting to me, and no, for not that reason, you filthy, filthy degenerates, but because it's such a clear line in the sand. They are rubbing their hands together gleefully and saying, what can we get them to accept next? Because they do this slippery slope. First, they create the words that they're going to use as shields and then get them accepted. And then they just take a word that they're going to do, that word is going to do evil acts. Then they just add phobic to the end of it. And they start seeing what degeneracy they can get away with. If you complain that you don't like little children, you don't think little children should dance for men on stage like a whore, they call you a phobic and you're spouting hate speech. And they'll get you kicked off social media and probably fired. It's a pretty reasonable thing to say that I don't want men in the ladies' room with little girls or in the lockers in high schools and college. In fact, at one time, it would probably be misogynist to say otherwise. But now, if you don't agree that men should be in the ladies' room with girls and women, you're phobic. So which is it? Which ones is it? Well, it all depends on who's higher on the oppression ladder. You know, how oppressed you are in a first world country. Get the F out of here. But nowadays, if you voice your concerns about men possibly hurting girls and women, you're speaking hate. You're spreading hate of marginalized and oppressed people. But aren't the girls who are the victims of these assaults and sexual batteries the actual, real oppressed people? No, as it turns out that these victims, they deserve what they got because they were phobic and they probably use hate speech on Twitter. So just bend over and enjoy it or else we'll cancel you. Society has been pushed to tolerate the intolerable or else you'll get fired. Oh gosh, we just want to use the bathroom. Okay, but why don't you use the bathroom for your sex? It's safer for everybody if people are in these spaces according to their sexes. And I am very pro men's rights and all that, but not to the point where I want to see women feel scared to use a bathroom for fear of a battery or just because they're uncomfortable. I'm not phobic any more than I'm crime phobic. I don't have an irrational fear of these things. The term is meaningless if it can mean whatever they want it to mean. If the opposite sex wants to watch me pee, I guess I don't really care because of the extreme physical differences in size. The threat of a battery is very low. But because of those same physical differences, the reverse is not true. It's just a difference of biology. There's nothing you can do about it. If you're 6'1" and 250 pounds, you're never going to be a petite 5'4", 110-pound lady. It's just never going to happen. You got to accept this life, and maybe the next life you'll get the body you want. I mean, some things you can do. You can work out, you can gain muscle, lose fat, whatever, but some things you can't do. So,
If you look like a football player, you're always going to look like a football player. There's nothing about that. Anyway, basically, we, the majority, are saying we don't want the opposite sex in these spaces because we fear attack or even just legal trouble. We want separate spaces so we can feel safe. Very reasonable. But this tiny minority of people are saying that we must share these spaces or else we're like anti-whatever phobic. We don't want to have to join our ladies in the woman's room so we can protect them. Every time they go to the bathroom, are we supposed to just stand by the sink watching the stall, having to explain to every lady that comes in what's going on, having your wife yell over the stall door that her husband is there to make sure? It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. We're in, I can't say clown world on YouTube anymore. We're in a world of jokers. So the vast majority of us, the very reasonable majority, have to bend over because a fraction of a percentage of men want to use the ladies' room. That's insane. And the people behind this are evil, evil people. So J.K. Rowling raised some very reasonable concerns, but unless you are 100% on board with the Marxists, you're literally an Austrian corporal from the 30s. They do not accept debate. They are authoritarians. They don't have dialogue with peasants. And why stop at bathrooms and lockers? Why not remove the locks from your door? Why not just abolish private spaces and private property? If we own everything in common, then you're free to use anyone's space as your own. Why should your home bathroom be any different? Why should your body? Surely the belief in bodily autonomy is istophobic. Your body should belong to the community for us to do with as we please. Okay, so BioWare actor Greg Ellis describes exiting douchebag as a disloyal, duplicitous corporate fake. Good choice of words there. Because he says, I've worked with you for over 10 years as the voice, and I've never worked with a greater douchebag. Odd. So this whole thing got started because someone accused him of being a transphobic, istophobic a-hole, who is obviously, like the trans thing, yes, he said he supported J.K. Rowling. How is that a race issue or BLM issue? He supported a very mild comment J.K. Rowling said about safe spaces for men and women having their own spaces. That's not a racial issue. It's a very moderate, mild thing to say. A reasonable person would say, yeah, every sexes are allowed to have their own spaces. But because he was not 100% on board, and he says something very reasonable, because he wasn't 100% on board with it, they want him gone. He said, 2020 is a difficult year. We live in a culture where people stand for what they hate and what they stand against rather than what they love and stand for. I stand for human rights, your rights, everyone's rights. That includes the right to say and believe whatever you want, even if I don't agree with you. That's why I stand with J.K. Rowling and with every fan of Dragon Age, regardless of whether or not we agree. That's how a civilized society functions. And I know that seems like a pretty big leap, but it's not. It's the difference between liberty and authoritarianism. If you don't even want to have a discussion, then you're saying that you are the masters who want to command the slaves. People on equal footing just have debates and dialogues and discussions. Masters and slaves don't. There's no dialogue. There's just commands. I will always defend the rights of people like this, and indeed all human rights to express their opinions without the fear of cancellation, public shame, or violence, regardless of whether or not I agree with them. I support everyone's right to exist and speak their mind. Yeah, the foundation is on free speech. If you don't have that, then you have your... People without free speech are called slaves. They are... If they want to equate everything to violence, like they will gladly do, they say speech is violence. Well, cancel culture is violence. You are using your speech as violence to get someone fired, to get someone to lose an opportunity as a job. That is violence. If you want to use the argument that these nonviolent acts can be equivalent to violence, hate speech is violence, well, then our argument would be that your cancel culture is violence. Your 1984 Fahrenheit 451 stuff is violence. you trying to publicly pressure people is hate pressure, hate speech on Twitter. Social media hate speech is what it should be called. You're, what do they call it when they gang up on everybody? Dogpiling, something like that. That's all, those are all hateful acts of bigotry. And the left doesn't like their own terms used against them because they go, oh, well, we can't be hateful because we're the good guys. Well, from our perspective, you're the bad guys. Well, you guys are Nazis. Well, you guys are commies. The only way you can settle this is if we have dialogue. We got to have liberty to discuss these things. Without that, one side is a master holding a whip, and that side right now is the left, which is why we're kind of headed for dark days. So this very reasonable guy says, I believe in, and I don't know anything about this dude, I believe in equality or equity of opportunity, and that everyone is created equal. Black lives matter, and they don't matter any more than anyone else's. Fair enough. I love everyone. Well, I don't love everyone. I support everyone's life choice and decision to love however they please and identify with whatever gender they prefer. Pretty reasonable. I will say dogs are superior to cats, though. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, guys, and I'll see you all next episode.